Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to grow your wealth. Hey, we're also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets podcast. You can find that on YouTube and iTunes as well, where we bring on some of the best agents to speak about how to grow their business, how to add more value, and how to grow passive income streams. You can learn more about that at expertcresecrets.com. I'm excited about our next guest. He is out of the great state of Florida, and he is focused on helping you to fuel your real estate business to an amazing life. And it's about taking intentional actions, and it's about being focused. And his background is a billion-dollar real estate agent, best-selling author, investor, developer, and coach. He's launched his real estate career after completing successful careers both of a naval submarine officer and defense contractor. And his hyperlocal strategy has led to one of the fastest starts in real estate, with over $22 million in sales in his first year, and so much more. Please welcome to the show with me, Dan, and it's Lesniak. Make sure I pronounce that correct. I probably butchered that a little bit, Dan. How'd I do?
Close. Lesniak. So you were close.
Lesniak. All right. And for welcome to the show, and for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you tell them a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be on here, help your audience get more ideas on how to increase your income, whether you're a real estate agent, investor, or just someone looking to do more business, because I think the strategies that I applied can work in anything. And you mentioned that my first year I sold $22.5 million. Well, how did I do it? And it all was based on a strategy of applying the most effort, the most focus to the smallest amount of area that would still give me enough market share. And I think that's where people struggle. They start too wide, too broad, and they're spread too thin, and they can't make an impact, and they can't gain market share. So you want to come up with a framework to figure out how can you find a marketplace that's untapped, that you can add value to and gain market share. So that's kind of how I got my start back in 2012. That was my first year full-time as an agent. I started part-time the year before and built up a business quickly enough that it made it silly for me to stay in my job. So I did that for a year, started to build out a team after that, and I've grown since then. And along with my wife, we've built up a real estate team that now has about 80 agents. We'll sell around 1,200 homes or so this year, all in the DC area. And we've also built out a podcast, a coaching program to train agents, the HyperFast Agent Program, and now we're developers as well. So we've got about 200 condos in our condo doors, units in our pipeline, our development pipeline in the DC area. And it all started though from having this hyperlocal strategy and really being able to figure out how to grow fast in a niche market.
Excellent. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. And thanks for sharing that little bit of the background, Dan. So Dan, I want to take one other step back though before we dive into the topic at hand. And it's this, perhaps go back to your high school days or your college days, right? Earlier years. And, I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life. Some people call them strengths. Some people call them superpowers. I believe they're God-given gifts, and they've been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. So I'm curious, what are those one or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how does it help how you help and bless people today?
I think it's the ability to really stay focused on whatever the most important task is to get to, whatever goal I'm pursuing at the time. So I'm really good at kind of putting on the blinders, tuning out things that don't matter, and just keeping my head down and focused on the stuff that'll make an impact. And I felt like I've kind of had that gift for a long time, whether it's high school, getting better at my position, or taking my next step in my career in the Navy. It's just really what needs to get done and else.
Beautiful. Absolutely love it. And that's a big gift. And I think a super power in today's world with distractions and a lot of noise and a lot of shiny objects. So very cool. So now let's apply that to the topic at hand, which is becoming a hyperlocal, hyperfast, perhaps even hyper-focused real estate agent. So Dan, what's the first step or first secret to becoming exactly what we just said?
I think the key is to take a step back and get an overall plan. A lot of realtors start off their career, and I think they don't really have a plan. So I learned this framework actually in business school called STP, which I think that they teach everyone like in marketing 101 in business school now, but it stands for segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So, the first step is to segment your market. And that can be geographic, lifestyle, occupation, right? Like figure out how do you, if the market is a pie, how would you chop it up? And there's lots of ways to do that, but geographic is probably the one that, for real estate at least, that comes the most easily in people's minds, but there's tons of ways to do it. The next step is targeting. All right, so you've got all these different segments. Now you got to pick which one am I going to go after. The smaller, I think, the better when you're starting out. Most people struggle with having it, not be too big, right? Or they want to like be the agent for their whole city. Well, if you've got a town of 50,000 people, it's going to be hard to compete on Google. It's going to be hard to compete, if you're trying to market to everyone, especially when you compare it to what if you just tried a certain neighborhood, or what if you tried to become the real estate agent for all of the doctors in town, right? So in that example, right, instead of going after 50,000 people, go after 500 or 1,000, and you're going to be able to get ads in front of them more cost effectively. You're going to be able to get more direct mail. However you're marketing, you're going to be able to reach 500 or 1,000 people a lot easier. So you got to pick a target segment that is not too big, but it can't be too small. Like you don't want to get 100% share of 5 people. That's not enough, right? So obviously it's got to be a certain size. But and then the last step in this framework is positioning. How are you going to position yourself as someone that can add unique value and then communicate that to them in a clear and concise and consistent manner?
Excellent. And then we're going to apply that to your story and how you did this to start it out, right? By the way, you can learn more about Daniel at hyperfastagent.com, hyperfastagent.com. So talk about it. So, right, you jump right in, and what was your boots on the ground to niche down and to focus and to do the segmentation, targeting, and positioning?
So I decided to try and become the real estate agent for one condo building. I'm in Arlington, Virginia. There's, I think, about 250,000 people that live there. So, decent size city, not as big as some, but still pretty big. I didn't go after 250,000 people. I went after 200. There's about 190 units in this one condo building. And I think another thing too that with succeeding there was the building was about 3 years old, and that is an ideal time. I think if you're an agent who's new or just looking to expand into new markets, if you can find a neighborhood that's about 3 years old, turnover is about to start happening, and there's no established agent in there, because probably what happened is the builder sold it, had an agent that sold it, and they kind of moved on and did something else, and they probably haven't stayed in touch. So there's no dominant agent yet, and sales are coming. So it's a great way to go compete where there's not a lot of people and neighborhoods or buildings that are about 3 years old.
Totally smart. So, makes sense. Yep.
So that was my reasoning for what I did, and I hit this group of people with multiple type of marketing, Facebook groups. I was making Facebook groups back, or pages, I think, back then. I did open houses. I did buyer seminars, for the building. I did weekly email newsletters. So, 5 or 6 or 7 different ways. Networking. I think a lot of times in my book, I talk about finding gatekeepers. So those are people that know a lot about a certain group of people. In my case, it was the person who worked at the front desk, the manager. They often knew who was going to move out, and that led to a lot of sales too. Just knowing who to go purposely try to talk to. So all of those kind of methods, some new, some traditional. I did it all, and it was all focused on two people, and I ended up getting half the sales in that building that year.
Amazing. Okay, so really segmenting down to literally one complex, right, that had about 190 units, and focusing like a laser by serving that community, educational, seminars, buyers, understanding anything to add value, open houses, the community, Facebook groups, multiple ways to just provide value, and focus like a laser. So when did your first sale come? And how did that go down?
I think the first one was a buyer I found. They don't have this category, I believe, on Zillow anymore. It was on Zillow Make Me Move. So that's a type of listing that used to be available on Zillow. It's not anymore, but it basically was kind of like a for sale by owner, but the person really wasn't selling. They were just throwing a number out there, kind of a high number typically, and saying, if I get this number, I'll move. You can make me move. I'm not looking to sell, but I'll do it for. I used to contact all of those when I saw them, and these people were looking for a single family home in the area, and helped them find that. And then I listed their condo. It sold really quickly, pretty close to. Or right at the price that they, their kind of dream price that they wanted on Zillow. I think that was a couple months after I got my license, so it didn't take too long. I was still working my contractor job at the time, so it was I did about 2 sales, I think, before my pipeline got so big that I quit that job.
Fantastic. Now let's apply this perhaps to the investor, right? The person who's trying to buy multifamily properties, trying to do some targeting to unlock opportunities, maybe off market. How would you apply that concept to the investor?
Yeah, well, I think investors are going to get the best deals if they can find the deal off market. Most of the deals that we do now for condo developments, especially the ones that have the really high margins, they seem to be off-market deals. It's very rare as an investor that we buy an on-market deal because normally we can get a better deal off-market. So if you're an investor, I think you need to look at Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Zillow, the for sale by owners. I think knocking on doors is a good strategy. Networking with contractors, engineers, architects. A lot of times these people know when a good deal is going to come. So, you can do some Google PPC type stuff as well to get them to come to you. But I think oftentimes it's those deals you find through the kind of boots on the ground networking and knocking on doors kind of stuff.
Got it.
They're the really sweet deals.
So what's the next step once you've done the segmentation, targeting, and positioning, right? And you're starting to niche down and you're starting to focus, you're starting to get some momentum. What's the next step to becoming a hyper-fast, hyper-local real estate agent?
Yeah, you got to take that positioning that you've developed and come up with a way to market it to people. I think it's got to be clear, concise, consistent, right? You have to consistently hit them with that message. Your value proposition message, you have to be consistent about it from the moment they see your marketing to your initial sales meeting to even after you've closed the deal. So it's got to be the same message throughout. It's got to be congruent, and I think you got to come up with a way to convey it to people concise, right? You've got to be able to explain it to them in under 30 seconds. If they see it in an ad, they've got to it's got to be something they can understand within a few seconds. I think if you don't meet that criteria, we mentioned earlier, in today's world, there's a lot of distractions. People people aren't going to take 10 seconds to look at your ad or read your email. They've got to get it like right away, whatever that value proposition is to that targeting, that segment you're targeting. They've got to be able to understand it quickly from your marketing and everything you do.
Excellent. Okay, so clear, concise, and consistent messaging, and throughout the sales cycle, before, during, and after, and that makes sense. And obviously, setting up systems and processes to be able to do this, and then to build out teams and delegate. I imagine this is all a part of this as well. What are the other things that perhaps most agents are missing that you could also add to this as well?
Well, I think first, to start out, have your initial success, get to that 100K to 250K level. I think those are the things I'd highlight. To go beyond that, I think you got to really learn how to build out a team. And I think a lot of agents and investors struggle with this. They get to a high level of success, a level where they're making six figures, even multiple six figures, but they get stuck there, and they have a good situation at this point. The problem is they're trading time for money. They own their job. They're self-employed. They don't own a business yet. So once you kind of get through these steps, get market share, the next step is to expand and scale, and you need people. You need to go out and hire admin people, service type people first, and then go get more agents. Right? Most agents, though, they get to this level of income, and for some reason they won't go out and hire administrative help, and they get stuck, they get busy, and they can't grow.
Got it. So getting out of their own way and making sure you're hiring wisely first, and you're building the foundation of admin and support and for service, client support services, right? And then looking to hire that new sales, or bring on the new sales agent, right? Listing or buy side. Is that a fair summary?
That is. I think people get nervous about paying a salary, so they'll hire a commission-based salesperson before their admin. And guess what? Now they have an admin, but it's them. They're the admin for themselves and their new salesperson. And so it makes the problem worse.
Yeah, so that's a mindset thing, right? And I see you've been coached by Tony Robbins' group and Grant Cardone, maybe even them personally, right? So what was your story to overcoming, to getting out of your own way?
Ooh, I think the biggest thing that, going to those events and going to those coaching sessions, the biggest help it was just seeing people succeed at high levels, but people that, a few years ago were maybe where I was at the time, right? So I think just surrounding myself by people that were a few years or more ahead of me, that really helped me see what was possible. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons to, listen to podcasts like this or go to events is to get around the right people.
Very cool, Dan. I like that. By the way, you can learn more about Daniel at hyperfastagent.com. It's hyperfastagent.com. And he has a book there too that you could check out, and then coaching programs, everything else. Really cool, Dan. We're going to shift here a little bit to capital gains tax and geek out a little bit on some 1031 stuff. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. What's your biggest frustration when it comes to either yours, clients, friends, family, when it comes to selling highly appreciated primary homes or investment real estate as it pertains to the 1031 exchange?
Yeah, I think a lot of agents aren't familiar with it. I know a lot of my real estate agents, when it comes up, they've got questions for me on it. So I think probably just the unfamiliarity a lot of people have with it, and it's something that most people don't do a lot of. So when it does come up, and I think there's things agents need to know about it that most don't. And then I think another thing that's probably problematic about it is if the client doesn't do this correctly, they've got a lot less money to go buy their next home with. So I think for real estate agents, that's probably a big pain point as well.
For sure. Yeah. Knowing their options, right. And knowing what the 1031 is, what it can do, what it can't do, right. Like it can't do a primary home, right. So we just did an $8.3 million deal in Palo Alto for a primary home seller. The 1031 did not qualify for. He happened to actually be a top KW agent. there in Palo Alto for many years. And so it was for his own house. And he sold and deferred a bunch of tax using what's called a Deferred Sales Trust. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. But if you're an agent listening to this, you want to know each tool, what it can do, what it can't do, so that you can add value. Because at the end of the day, Dan, tell me, if you're not adding value, right? We're not really in the business of selling real estate or selling tax deferral or giving educations. We're in the business of solving problems, right? And the moment you can solve problems is the moment you win the listing, right? Or the more you know more about the property that the person is selling or the deals next door, or a way to solve the problem is the moment you win the listing. Can you talk a little bit about being a problem solver?
Yeah, it is. That's what real estate is. You're solving financial and emotional problems for people. It's a little bit of both, for sure. You're providing a service, and it's confusing. The tax laws are complicated. They're always changing. Right now there's a ton of proposals on the table, and I don't. If you're a consumer out there, like how do you plan for that, right? In the next 9 days, you don't know what's going to become a law or not. So they need people that are up to date on all of this stuff and can find solutions to the challenges that we know about, and the ones that may come up that we still don't know about.
Absolutely. So that being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you make sure to tell yourself to do?
Ooh, I would have started earlier in real estate, but everyone kind of says that. So I'll switch to saying have multiple exit strategies for every deal you do.
Excellent. Love it. Second question, what's the number one book you've recommended the most in the past year?
I think one that I've enjoyed a lot this year is David Goggins' book. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, though, but he's just got such an amazing story, and it's very motivational.
Excellent. Check that out. David Goggins. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
Probably the tax law changes that are coming up. I mean, there's potential changes to the limits on the 1031. There's a proposal to nix the ability of self-directed IRAs to invest in like anything that is for accredited investors. So there's a lot of stuff that affects real estate on the docket, and that hopefully we'll figure out in the next 30, 60 days or so.
Yeah, as we're watching that very, very closely. Next question is this: what's your favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Ooh, I think it's the Wayne Gretzky one comes to the top of my head, where you skate to where the puck is going, not where it's at. So I think it's just always knowing the market, knowing the playing field, and staying ahead of that.
Fantastic. Last question. After all your success helping all the agents, building out 1,200 business partners and real estate agents, buying real estate, having the family, everything else, writing the cool book and all the coaching program, how do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
I love that question. For me, it's kind of having time each day to spend time in gratitude, and it doesn't always have to be about the big things. Sometimes it's just seeing the sunrise, or exercising outdoors, or I just got back from a great hunting trip where I took my son on. So just finding time to be in gratitude. And I'm motivated right now most to get to newer and bigger heights by my family. I want to have more time and more resources to do more cool, epic things with them, and leave a legacy for them and others. So it's really my family that motivates me the most right now.
Dan, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I want to encourage you to keep using your ability to stay focused, right, and do the most important task to help yourself and others reach and accomplish their goals. And for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, would you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
You can go to hyperfastagent.com or just follow my personal Instagram account. I answer my DMs on there, so check out my.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan, for being on the show. And also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets podcast as well. Hey, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit highly appreciated real estate, save a failed 1031 exchange, sell a business or cryptocurrency, and or if you're a real estate professional, help others get unlocked to be able to sell their own primary homes or real estate as well. Please go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com if you want to learn more about that. Please rate, review, subscribe. We so appreciate everyone out there, and we